Welcome back to High School DxD Anime Review. This is special number 5. This is reviewing the 16th light novel of the High School DxD light novel series, Daywalker of the Extracurricular Lesson. Yeah, this one is basically something that's been sort of, how should I put this? A build-up of something that's been going on since book 14. Yeah, it's like book 14 was setting up this particular book. Yeah, book kind of starts out with pretty much everybody at the Heisei house, and they're contacted by Azazel, and he tells them there's been a coup d'etat, and Reyes and Kiba have gone missing, so the whole group goes along. Now they do ask they do ask 3 people to stay behind. Issei tells LaFay, Gareka, who is Kino-chan's older sister, and Revel to stay there just because he cares about them and he doesn't want anything bad to happen to them, which they agree. And in the case of Revel, just to keep an eye on some of the business stuff that needs to be done, which she agrees to. And I should also point out, though, this is the first time they've done a little something like this, where they go outside the country of Japan. They go to another country. They go to Romania, of all places. Yes, Romania. Apparently, one of the 2 factions, the Topolis faction, they had a coup d'etat, and their leader, who was basically a sexist, yeah, because he basically disrespected women, he fled the country, and now they have these new leaders in charge. The current leader of the faction is a woman named Valerie, who Gasper takes a liking to. Yeah. Also, just to point out, though, this is basically sort of a Gasper type story, and he gets a boatload. He gets the most development in this whole story. Issei gets some development, not very much. I forgot to mention this when I talked about Volume 14. Yeah, Issei basically power level wise has gotten a bit weaker because Jargag, the dragon he's a host to, used a lot of his power to resurrect him, and there's references to the fact that basically Issei's body is a piece of the great dragon's flesh. That's kind of the reason why he's alive the way he is. So yeah, they pretty much and they find Reyes and Kiba pretty easily, and they're perfectly fine. Yep. And of course, Gasper gets angry at one point when Valerie, apparently she's the host to about 3 holy grails. Yeah, the book doesn't explain why. Apparently it's a subspecies, and 2 to get removed, so she basically goes into a kind of a coma. They recover one of them from one of the villains of the book. They put back inside of her. She's kind of awake, but she's still not fully able to move. And it's implied at one point she actually killed off during the book, and then it was suggested that she could become a clone, and Gasper gets upset about it, and he turns to just darkness, and he kills like all the villains in the book with the exception of a few. Yep, and of course the Grimoire group and a couple people from the school president's group, they actually get help from Team Veil. Yeah, they actually get help from them, and they assist in defeating some of the other villains. And because of their actions, Odin decided to adopt Veil as his own son. And here's something quite neat: the entire Veil group gets all pardons for what happened in this book. Yeah, the entire team gets pardons. So when Issei gets home to talk to Revel about potentially having LaFay become his magician, yeah, they both agreed that they should definitely talk to her, and she's able to do it now because she doesn't have any past basically to hold her back, and he won't be condemned for hiring a wanted criminal, to be his magician. So, yeah, he does do that in the next book. He does actually talk to her, which I thought was a great piece of development for that particular subplot. Yeah, that particular portion of him finding a magician, that's been going on since I think book 11. Yeah, this has been a recurring plot thread for the past several books, and finally this book kind of wraps that plot thread up. In a way, they finally put a final nail in the next book. Yeah. Also, there's this really weird scene of Azia had to give up her underwear to have this dragon turn against this particular group of people. Yeah, and here's the thing. The villains in this the villains in this book are basically vampires. Yep, vampires. And the good vampires are the Caramel faction. And they also kind of explain a little about Gapster's backstory here of why he was abandoned. Yeah, apparently, after his mother gave birth to him, she died of shock. Not because of childbirth, because of shock. For some reason. Yeah, it's never thoroughly explained of how. They don't go into full detail about that. And Gasper's father is not a very nice person. Yeah, they get a chance to meet him, and the guy is a jerk. Yeah, even Issei can tell, yep, he's a complete jerk. I mean, in the case of the other light novels prior to this one, they all have really good stories. This one, yeah, I mean, with the exception of Book 15, which is basically a series of short stories, this one feels like a bit of a... it's a little bit step up from what was going with Book 14. But it's also a bit of a step down from Book 12 of how awesome that was. But it's still a good book. It does resolve a plot point. It resolves kind of two major plot points of the series. They're kind of two plot threads. In the case of the Magician thing, that's been going on for 6 books. Yes, 6 books of Issei looking for a magician. And of course, the other one was the whole thing with the vampire faction. That plot thread has been going on for at least a couple books, but at least they didn't drag that one as long as Issei looking for a magician. So yeah, it's an overall really fantastic book. Also, at the end of the book, they have it where, well, aside from, well, the Team Veil getting pardons, Valerie is taken back to Japan to live with Gasper and Kiba, who actually are living together, by the way. Yep. And I think, yeah, that's really it. It's an overall really good novel. It's just that it's not as awesome as basically Book 12 is, but it's at least an improvement over Book 14 for several reasons. One, you have Reyes and Kiba actually take part in the action, because they're not absent like they were in Book 15. Well, Kiba was there in Book 15 for like one story, but Reyes basically was absent for the entirety of Book 15. It's the only book I can think of outside of flashbacks. She doesn't really show up in the book at all. Yeah. Now, I'm currently reading Book 17 right now, and it's really interesting so far. And it basically, it's kind of a book, it's focusing on Ross Weiss. Yeah, you give a backstory for her, which I'm looking forward to reviewing this book in the 6th special. What rating do I get this particular book? I'm going to get this book roughly a 9 out of 10. It's a damn good book. And yeah, I still kind of wish they would release this, but have it officially released. I'm reading fan translations, and I got to admit, the fan translations are really damn good. I got to hand it to people who actually translate these books. I understand what's going on. I kind of wish there was. If there's one company I think who could, in fact, do English translations and official ones of this particular series, it's probably going to be Viz Media. Yeah, they're the ones probably who are going to have to do it. Either that, or it's going to... Yeah, Viz Media is the only I can think of that releases light novels. Yeah. I can't think of any other company that does. If anybody knows of any other official company, aside from Viz Media, that releases the light novels from Japan and releases them in English, please listen to the comments below, because aside from Viz Media, I think maybe Tokyo Pop does the same thing as well. But aside from that, I can't really think of any other company, any kind of publication kind of publishes manga that also publishes light novels. Funimation does not count because Funimation is a dub company. They don't publish manga. They never do. They're more into dubbing. Excuse me. TV shows and movies. That's what they do. They're a dub studio. They don't do releasing books into English. That's not their job. I know Viz Media basically has got a bunch of stuff. So they publish manga, they publish light novels, and they're also an official dub studio. Not in the case of Funimation. Though, in the case of if they release it over here, they probably have to do a sort of motion for the DVDs. Yeah, even though the Funimation is the one doing the dubbing. I'm sure Viz Media would not have a problem basically working with Funimation to do a promotion for these light novels. I would probably suggest releasing well, in conjunction, whenever they release like crossover re-releases of the seasons of DVD, I would suggest releasing with the DVD. Like in the case of the first season, release the very first 2 light novels. Same in season 2, same thing. Also, Funimation, do me a favor, actually buy the dub, the 4 OVAs when you re-release the seasons. Yeah, it's I don't know why that the OVA has never been dubbed in English. It's particularly very bizarre. Apparently Funimation doesn't care about dubbing OVAs. Yeah, it's particularly very weird. It's like one of a few series I can think of that they officially have worked on, and they've never dubbed the OVAs. The only other series I can think of where they never dubbed the OVAs is, off the top of my head, it's got to be Fairy Tail. I've talked to Peppercorn about this. Not even he knows why in the world the OVA is never dubbed. I don't know why Funimation did this. Either 1, they're not required to do it, or 2, they don't want to do it, or 3, they don't have the license to do it anyways. They can. They have the license to do. They release High School DxD in the dub. They release it. Why not do the actual OVAs themselves as well? I don't see why not. Yeah, I would say re-release the first season to basically hype up the light novels. Like have a sort of on the actual light novels themselves that this book, like in the case of the first season, or you can release the light novels with the first season. In the case of the first 2 light novels, saying that this book and this book, like release it like in a 2-book set, like say that these 2 books were adapted into this season. Do the same thing with books 3 and 4. And in the case of season 3, I was just releasing books 5 through 7 because that's what they loosely adapt anyways. Release that separately from the season because, well, it's not that good of a season when it comes to adaptation with because they adapt stuff out of order, and have it where you could probably have Viz Media say, hey, if you read these books, you get a better understanding of what goes on in this particular season, a lot better than what the animators did. And of course, you can do the same thing with season 4, where you do the first season just release volumes 9 and 10 with releasing that. 8 you could probably release along with like 5 through 8. And there's 25 light novels, so it probably shouldn't take Viz Media too long to have these things translated in English. But I would probably suggest releasing these 2 books at a time, releasing 2 books at a time, like probably I would say translate these books and get them released as soon as possible, and make sure it looks good, but also give promotion on the books for the show itself. That is just my suggestion, anyways. Yeah, so that's particularly it for this particular review. Stay tuned for my review. Probably maybe not tonight, anyways. Maybe tomorrow. I'm gonna review JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, the newest episode of that particular season, along with the 17th light novel. But until you see you in my next review, bye.